So today, I want to have an interview with you about this issue that often arises in the area of cultural sensitivity, is as a commonly referred as white person. So, how do you face anger coming from someone in a marginalized group that you work with, that's directed at you?
Yeah, I think the best way to illustrate this is through a story. And this story comes from an experience I had where I had an assignment to write about someone in a marginalized culture. And to all appearances, I represent the dominant culture.
Mm-hmm.
And this was someone who I already had an established relationship with and had already expressed my interest and commitment. So it was known that my writing and what I was about to do was based on commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, this person, who is highly respected in her community, and I highly respect her as well, asserted to me in a very dramatic and eye-to-eye way that dominant culture people, white people, always take and take and take.
Mm-hmm.
And so she felt cautious
Mm-hmm.
about sharing anything with me because that's her experience.
Right.
And in receiving that, I recognized the validity of it. I actually became very soft when this came towards me and met it really softly and responded by saying, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And I make a commitment that I will not do that, that I will make sure that anything that I write is with permission, and the final product will always have her approval.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you. So in my experience, often, because I'm on the other side of this dynamic, because some of times that the anger that or the trauma as a result of the racial tension come out in personal ways. And how do you so it seems like in your response, there is a distinction between you're holding a personal integrity while affirming what's happened collectively between the two races. That seems to be a very, I'd say, advanced, developed skill. Can you say more about what's your experience of, that with that personal integrity? If you cannot take it personally, and yet you still need to help digest what's going on in that moment.
This is a great question,
Mm-hmm.
Spring, and just a beautiful inquiry. And I will say that this soft response that I felt comes from extensive experience, because the comment itself was activating for me, but I had already researched that activation in the past. I already had matured my understanding of this kind of interaction, so that I met it as a mature person. I met it as someone who has investigated her own trauma. I met it as someone who had dropped down into my true commitment. So I don't use the word commitment casually. I was committed to this woman. I was committed to this task. I was committed to being an embodiment of cultural sensitivity. I had that whole scope already in my body. I felt it somatically, the openness. I felt open. I didn't feel defensive. I didn't feel like I had to protect myself from this assertion. And that was a nervous system response that I was tracking very carefully, and that I was grateful to have reached that point in my own development.
Thank you. Yeah, it really strikes me that your response is very much a fruit of decades of somatic work, energetic work, and your understanding of trauma and the nervous system. So that's why the course we're offering is called Embodied Cultural Sensitivity, because in order to practice cultural sensitivity, like what you illustrated, is very much an embodied art.
Yeah, I can't pretend not to be defensive.
Right.
I have to actually not be defensive.
Right.
I'm no good at pretending. And the sensitivity of the person with whom I was having this exchange is so thoroughgoing that
Right.
if I were pretending, it would be
It won't
evident.
work.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us your story today.
You're quite welcome. This is such an important area of exploration and resourcing. It's really a privilege to be part of something like this.